Hi, I'm Sarah Marshall from U Wellbeing, and I'm here today with my colleague Ashley Meyer. Hi Ashley.
Hi Sarah.
Hi. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is ME. Now there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of controversy about what it is, what it isn't.
Absolutely.
Is it psychological? Is it physical? And the discussion has happened within the medical profession as well as the complementary therapy field. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what we feel ME is practitioners in what we do.
Absolutely.
And I think it's good to make it very clear that we're not medical doctors or practitioners, but we have a lot of experience working in our chosen field with this condition. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So just starting with ME, we don't really see ME as the start anywhere. So what's your thoughts about kind of what is ME, Ashley?
Right, okay, well, just if we look at the broad range of people that are unwell with ME or CFS, it's very clear to observe that there's a broad range of symptoms, and even though there quite often can be symptoms that are quite similar from one person to the other, there's a very diverse mix of the symptoms. So if everyone's not experiencing the same condition or the same illness, then what actually is going on?
Yeah.
And it becomes very clear to us that it's an illness with multiple factors. Now, quite often we hear of people talking about having had glandular fever or having had a severe virus, and following that experience having sort of then gone sort of a stage further and slipped into ME or chronic fatigue. And quite often it's almost inferred that it's the virus that has caused the illness. But we know that that's not actually the case, because actually what really happens when sort of somebody has that virus or glandular fever is that if had their system been resilient and with the correct resources, then they would have been able to effectively deal with that infection, and they would have recovered.
Yeah.
But we know that people who become ill, their systems have been severely compromised.
Yeah. Okay, so what you're kind of really saying, what we're really saying is there isn't really one kind of factor going on.
No.
ME in itself isn't the full picture. What we
No.
really need to start looking at is the bigger picture, but also looking at the run-up to kind of what was going on for the person
Very much
before
so.
they got ill.
Very much so, because actually we refer to ME as a process of burnout, really. How does the body burn out? It burns out because of outweighing the resources that it's got available.
Yeah.
And so what is really outweighing the body in that way? And those factors could be physical, they could be emotional, they could be behavioral, they could be lifestyle factors, they could be social factors. There are lots of different factors that are going on. Trauma is a factor as well. And each person's got a slightly different makeup. So just as an example, somebody may be working extremely hard, and they may be physically, they may be sort of quite resilient, but they're working very, very hard, and they also maybe have sort of a background where there's been sort of some trauma in their background, there have been sort of some emotional challenges in their background. So all kind of like the pushing of their system and working hard in that way is sustainable, but only up to a certain level. And at a certain level the body starts buckling essentially, and starts burning out. And when it sort of starts to burn out, then physically the person can sort of start feeling a little bit different, and things can sort of start becoming impaired. And so then that starts to sort of become more of an element. And then once you've got sort of the behavioral and sort of some of the physical, then it could be sort of the response to that could be sort of an emotional nature. So then you've got sort of emotional factors coming into it. So it really is sort of a combination of lots and lots of different factors that then lead the system to being compromised and essentially burning out.
So there's obviously a lot going on.
Yeah.
And if we think about kind of the end result of that, and a lot of people have looked at the system or the body in its separate systems,
Yes.
would you say that it's just one system that's failing, or is there something, again, more going on around that?
Right, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, that really is what's been going on for decades. The search for the reason. Is it a virus? Is it something physical going on? Is it something psychological, which is quite often being inferred as well? And really, whatever people have come up with has only been part of the picture. And that's really what has delayed people's ability to actually sort of recover from the condition. So if in more traditional medical circles, you'd have sort of the immunologists, the endocrinologists, each specialism looking for sort of reasons why this is going on, but only focusing on their piece. So that's happening in traditional medical circles, but actually also happens in complementary as well.
And that all has its place because, as we know, each system and each factor will have a different reaction.
Absolutely.
So,
however, it's the body is not just sort of a set of parts functioning individually. They're all interrelating. And the minute you get part of the body starting to malfunction, then that's going to have a knock-on effect to the next and to the next. And I know that we have a different video talking about the maladaptive stress response, and we know that in that situation, that has a physiological impact, and the systems start to function in a different way. They're overcompensating essentially, and so when that happens, then different systems start to malfunction, and one affects the other.
So although from what you're saying, the looking at each system has value, what really makes a difference is being able to look at each system and how they interrelate with each other and how they impact each other, and we need to work with the different factors that are causing that malfunction.
Absolutely. Well, very often the symptoms that people are experiencing, or sort of particular systems that they're experiencing difficulty with, are a manifestation of what's been going on up until then. So rather than dealing with fixing that part, it's about actually dealing with the contributing factors and getting the body into a state where it can start to recover. That is much more important.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I know that some people are very, they believe quite strongly that it is a very physical illness, and that's not something that we're disputing at all.
Absolutely.
But how does how we work help and impact a system that is physically compromised, that has very real physical symptoms?
Well, the way we work, we very much work on the mind-body interaction, really. And given the awareness that we have of the different stages that people go through the illness and in their quest to recover, we are able to engage appropriate ways of working at different times. So yes, it is very much experienced physically, but it can be that actually sort of working on the relaxation response and getting the body more into a state where it can start healing, that's already going to stabilize the body to a certain degree. At that point, it could be that certain other types of work might be really important to sort of consider. So we may be sort of looking at sort of more kind of nutritional work, maybe sort of key to sort of starting to build the resilience of the body, or indeed maybe sort of something of a medical nature needs attention as well. So it's about knowing what needs to be engaged at what stage.
I think it's really worth kind of making a point that if you do believe it's very physical in nature and that's the only thing that's going on, we can still have a very kind of emotional stress response to something very physical that we don't really know kind of how to approach. So although even if that's going on for a person, then we work with the emotional and the stress response around that experience.
Absolutely, and as we know, ME, chronic fatigue, is really a condition that really encapsulates what we mean by mind-body connection. And once we sort of start working on it, it becomes very clear what the impact, it's a loop essentially, and what happens in that loop.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you very much.
So to find out further information, to follow up on some of the kind of the points and the things that we've discussed, have a look at our website, which is www.uwellbeing.com. Thank you.